This is Jeffrey Crivero, and I'm conducting an oral history with Mr. Richard Feacher. The interview is being conducted at the Sanford Museum in Sanford, Florida on Thursday, March 28, 2024. Mr. Feacher, thank you so much for speaking with us today. Would you please begin by just stating your name and telling us a little bit about where you're from and what life was like for you growing up?
Absolutely. My name is Richard Feacher, and I am from Sanford, Florida. I grew up in the Georgetown area of Sanford, Florida. Historic Georgetown. Life growing up in Georgetown, I came into the museum today and in talking with, lady here was giving me some information. She said this was the museum or the area of dirt roads. So I immediately related to that. Life growing up here was a lot of walking on dirt roads. And contrary to perhaps popular belief, dirt roads seemingly in those days got hotter than asphalt does these days. Like you could not walk sometimes on the dirt in the summertime and not have your feet get burned. But it was beautiful, I think, in the respect of looking back now when it comes down to the resources that we have, that we had, not only resources like fruits and vegetables, because I can recall in my backyard having at least 5 to 6 different fruit trees, and every neighbor having something similar or something different. There were a lot of gardens. Of course, having family members that worked in the agricultural industry and in the fields, as they call it. There was a lot of cucumbers and cabbage and the things now that you realize as a responsible and paying adult don't just appear in your backyard, don't just come free, but at that time it seems like there were in abundance and very wholesome, very community oriented, and family and church, and probably in the reverse order, church and then family, because a lot of times the church was your family. Some people didn't have family, so the church was their family. Even those that did have family were able to have a larger family within the church. I went to historic St. James AME as a result of my grandmother and her family going there and really being active in the church. And that was on one corner, and on every other corner there was a church. African, Methodist, Episcopal, Baptist, and different churches, and they're still there to this day. Not probably as populated by the people that live around them. People move out and drive in, but everyone was a part of some church. Even those people that you didn't see go every Sunday, when it came time to go, they had to pick a church. And that was just one block. You go up a few more blocks, there's other churches as well. And that was a part of the fabric for the Georgetown community.
What can you tell us a little bit about the history of St. James AME Church in Sanford?
Well, I didn't really recognize the historic value of it growing up there. It was just my church. As I said, there was a lot of churches. Of course, we always had pride that we were, in some respect, the church. But we're going to be humble. But as I came back from college and a lot of the historical acknowledgments started to come forth, then I realized that this was the first of such churches, not only in the area, but in Florida, and possibly one of the first in the nation. I don't have the exact data, but that was special to see that recognized from a higher level, bringing the focus down, like, hey, well, what are you going to do to preserve this? Although my family no longer attends, I do have some family members that do attend, and it's nice to see the edifice still there. Again, numbers aren't as great, but the tradition continues.
Do you have any memories that stand out related to attending the church?
Absolutely. Probably the one of the biggest memories for me is yearly the church would take a trip to Bach Towers, and they would have what was called the Passion Play, or it was around this time, around Easter time. You go down and see a Passion Play. I mean, and this thing was the real deal. It said, and God said, "Let there be thunder," and lightning would appear in the sky. So very dramatic. A nice long trip, and of course that always brought about a lot of food for the road, food when you got there. And that was another thing that you think about. That memory stands out, but always if something was happening in the church, there was always going to be something going on in the annex that got good punch, good cake, and good chicken if it was a real event. So food was very imperative.
Did you attend, you said you attended school in the area?
I did. I did. I went to what is now historic Hopper Elementary. I went to, I guess, what was at that time called New Hopper. I didn't go to the historic building, but I went to Hopper Elementary from 1st to 4th grade.
Do you remember any teachers that stood out?
I absolutely do. One in particular was Miss Thelma Shepard. Miss Shepard was, I mean, an angel on earth. She was like a kindergarten teacher, but Miss Shepard was still around when I came out of college. But not only was Miss Shepard still around, she was still driving the same car that she drove when I was in kindergarten. The car still sits at her house now, and that's just the type purity that she brought to the job. Another from the community was Miss Bryant. Miss Leola Bryant, I believe was her name. And they both lived not far from each other. She wasn't able to keep her car as long as Miss Shepard did, but Miss Bryant was another that stood out. Miss Picklesheimer, she stood out particularly because I moved from Sanford to Winter Springs, and a whole different environment. But by the time I got to middle school, there was a Mr. and Mrs. Picklesheimer that were teachers there. It's like, well, there can't be two families. They happen to be her son and daughter-in-law. So she sticks out. She had a real neat way of discipline in which, I know it's probably not too PC now, but she would, and didn't happen to me, because I recognized she wasn't to be played with, but if she asked you a question, like she caught you in a situation that you shouldn't be in, whenever you go to answer, she'd like start to, hit you under the mouth, and then she'd ask again, and it was always weird to say, well, why don't they just stop answering? But it was her way of keeping control. She wasn't from the community, and we're a rambunctious group, but she was able to maintain control. Outside of the teachers, of course, for me, everything kind of relates back to food. I can recall some of the ladies there that were in the cafeteria, more so by face. Another interesting part to my journey as it relates to here, when I came back after college for a portion of time, I was able to do substitute teaching in Seminole County, and ran into or worked alongside of one of those same ladies that had worked in the cafeteria when I was in school, was the cashier at a middle school that I worked. So to see that full circle dedication that people had to the community, it definitely brought a sense of pride. And having visited other places, I know how rare it is.
Do you remember some of those recreational activities you do as a kid?
We had a lot of kickball, dodgeball. I remember the big thing was May Day Play Day, where each May there was a particular day and no classes, just recreation all day. So all of the things that you did during PE, as we called it, you got to do them, and you know, we didn't have bouncy houses, but there were parachutes, like literal parachutes that put someone in the middle and the others get around and you could bounce. That was our bouncy house. So, you know, one-legged races, bobbing for apples, just a lot of wholesome, you know, wholesome activities.
And just generally speaking, what are some of your favorite memories of Georgetown in general?
Some of my favorite memories of Georgetown would have to be related to my family, family gatherings. I moved away, and I wasn't far, maybe a 20-minute ride, but always coming back, because for each holiday there was a particular family member, either my grandmother, my grandfather, or someone that you know was responsible for the family gathering that day. So if you didn't live in Sanford, like we had relatives in Daytona, in Wildwood, in Orlando, us over in Winter Springs, everyone would come into Sanford on that day, and being able to be with your family while, you know, on those days others' families were gathering, that really, again, it kind of ties back to, you know, what I was saying, it being very family-oriented and community-oriented. One of the particular things that I remember, every Christmas, Locust Avenue would be the place that would be blocked off, no cars, and just all day playing with, if you got a bike, your bike. If you got, you know, you think it'd be crowded, but we were all, no matter whether it was bike or skate, it was just a lot of activity on that day. And you know, it's not so much that you see that level of engagement and really enjoying life these days. Everything's more, you know, you move at a lot faster pace, I believe.
Well, is there anything that you'd like to add or expand on? Do you have any final thoughts before we finish up?
No, just really thankful for the opportunity to share some things that I thought were special to me, and obviously special to you guys as well, putting this together. And hopefully this will be a good contribution. I know my grandmother would love the opportunity, you know, to share more about her pond, if you will. As they say, if you can't praise your own pond, who can praise it for you? So for me to get that opportunity to share, because as I look around, things are changing so much within the community. I don't think there are many left from the generation before mine that remember, you know, Georgetown and Sanford like I do.
Excellent. Mr. Feacher, thank you so much again for sharing your time and speaking with us today.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it. This has been Jeffrey Crivero with Mr. Richard Feacher at the Sanford Museum on March 28, 2024.